Well, there's the Bell here in Kersey. Had a lunch in there. I can recommend it. It's well worth a visit. Well, there you have it. I have my mixing palette. Looks very much like an artist, oil artist mixing palette really. And my brushes standing up with water in the container so that I can keep the brushes wet so that they don't dry and obviously get all clogged up. So let's get started. Well, as you can see, I've laid out the basic drawing just purely with a quite a thick lead pencil. Any pencil would do really. And I'm just going to use at the moment these brushes. They're simple hog brushes, Pro Art, but nothing special at all. A rigger, more or less a, I don't know, 1/2 inch flat, and a number 6 round, and a smaller round, number 2. I think that's probably all I'll need. Probably need a palette knife just to scrape off the colour occasionally, and so let's see where we go. Well, I'm going to use cerulean blue, which is a blue that the only reason I'm using it is because I've been given it basically as a selection of brushes to try. Paints to try. So let's use it for our sky. Nice colour, cerulean. As I say, it's not a colour that I use greatly. Have put white with that, as you can see. I'm just sweeping that across. It's going to be a simple sky. Nothing fussy there with the sky. And it needs laying in fairly simply too. Because that's the way I intend to paint this scene. The simple application of colour. Good thing about acrylics, unlike watercolours, you can model, but I still love painting in watercolour. But let's give acrylics a go and let's see how they work out. I'm adding more white as I come down, try and lighten the colour. Picking around the buildings because that's the way I see this subject working out to start with anyway, and pick around the top nice and well, as neat as possible. It's not very neat, don't have to be really. This is, and as I always say, it's my interpretation of the scene. May not be, it certainly won't be anywhere near the original scene or photograph, but that's what we do when we paint. We create our own piece of artwork. And just going deeper with some blue there, just more blue really, just adding more blue just before it dries. There we go. And then I'm going to put a little bit of cloud work in, quite simply. Darker underside there. I'm using the brush really to create that illusion of clouds, that stroke a bit more light into that. That's it. And well, I think that's probably it. Let's leave well alone, shall we? As he says, going in again. Just blend that just a little bit darker in the distance there, although there's a lot of tree work there, so that's not a problem. So there you have the first washers gone in of acrylic. Right, the next stage is to get the roof work in, and we're all red tile roof or brown tile roof. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use three colours for this. I'm going to use a red, which is more or less a cadmium red. I'm going to use a brown, burnt umber. I'm going to use raw sienna, but of course you always use white as well. And we'll have a bit of that brown in there anyway. Right, so in the distance we don't want too intense sort of colours really. I'm going to be fairly light, bit of yellow, bit of brown, a little bit of white, putting in a touch of red just to give it that feel. But overall we've got that lovely roof area coming down there like that. We've got a tree in the background, but basically it goes like that, and that finishes there at that sort of angle and under there, and it overhangs. So that's the first roof gone in. Bit more red now in the mix for the next roof there and there. Blocking in really. Quite a bit more burnt umber and a bit more red now going in for that roof there, and that cuts into that roof, into that one there because of that gable, you see. So but I'm painting it in as a different colour just to denote that it is of a different sort of colour. Now I'm putting a bit of blue with that, bit of the cerulean. Just going to paint in, drop in those chimneys. So that's basically the roof area there. We do have a touch of the roof. It's a slanting roof there that overhangs. Now we get to I suppose what I'd class as the light roof areas. So this time we need quite a lot of white in the mix, and a bit of red, and of course a bit of the raw sienna to create that lighter feel to these roof areas. Over painted there, but I can tuck that in later. There we go. That's perfect. Well, nothing's perfect in this type of painting, or indeed any painting, but it's as good as we're going to get at this stage, I think. Now I'm going to use more yellow on that because that roof is quite light, and a bit more white. Okay, now that colour is going in there, and that's also going in there like that. There you go. Just to give more light to that side. But then we come to the darker ones that's not quite, they're a little bit going away from the light really. So I'm putting blue in with the burnt umber, and we're getting quite a nice deep dark colour, a bit more red in there too. Let's add a bit more red. There you go. So that's the roof areas there. I love this blocking in. A lot of the older artists, or the masters as it were, actually used what they called apprentices for blocking in. So they blocked in, and the professionals came along and put in the finishing touches, which not a bad thing to do really, I suppose. Right, there we go. Pop that chimney in, not sure whether it sits behind or in front. And right, now I'm going to look at the road. The road's pretty simple. Bit of blue, bit of brown, and that slides off into the distance. There's a couple of cars there, we'll get those in shortly, but that slides off like that. That comes towards us like that. Just clean the brush again and add white with a touch of the red to really pull that road forward like that. And that's obviously, those cars are parked on the road, not the path, so I've got to bring that up, and then that then sweeps across like that. And then I put a bit of blue in there just to make it look grey, because that's what I want as I head towards this foreground. A little bit of white, a bit of red and a bit of blue. There you go. And a bit more white. There you go, look at that. That's the way. And then of course we've got to get that feeling that comes towards you, but we'll do that later on. And some little touches of white then in the foreground, and that's where the water finishes and the road begins there. Now we have a basic sort of orangey colour, a bit of white, bit of raw sienna, a little bit of red to create orange, and that is for, yep, that's for that building there. That cuts in down there like that. Sort of colours that you see in Suffolk quite often. Because they're all washed with colour, these buildings, and then just to make it a bit darker, put a bit more red with it and a bit more brown, because that one is away from the light, same colour but just away from the light, and that has an overhang there. A lot of these old buildings have that overhang, which is always interesting to paint like that. There we are. Now I'm squeezing some paint out of the brush so that I can change colour fairly quickly, and this time it's a lighter sort of colour really to that one there. Similar sort of colour really, just put a little bit more white with that. There we are. What do we get like that? Well, it's not bad. I think we can probably live with that as a blocking in process. There we go. And we'll block that in. Put a door there at some point. Oh, and we do have this colour again here. How dark is that? It's in between, isn't it? Right, let's use a bit more white to paint the frontage of that. And then a bit more brown to paint the side that technically is in shadow, so we'll attend to that at some point later on in the painting process really. There we are. And while we've got this dark colour, a bit more red in there, point the brush and we put a chimney on there just for future reference. That is white, but this is in shadow here, so we're going to produce the shadow side of that building because the light's coming across but slightly behind these buildings, so always nice to pick up that side edge like that. and basically these are all white, just beamed, but of course they won't be white at the end. Good. Right, the next thing we've got to do is to put the cars in. We're talking blue and or whatever. Oh well, let's use the blue again, and I'm putting red with that just to darken it off, and reasonable width of vehicle, bearing in mind the size of the road and everything else that goes with it. So that's, we'll put highlights on there later. That runs down like that. Wheels will go in later, and the one at the back of that is actually going to be red, orange, which seems funny, but let's try and do an orange one. Bit of red, bit of yellow. There we go. A bit more white with that. So pull in a bit more white. There we go. And this one is slightly bigger. Shall we? There we go. Put the windows in there later. And we can see a little bit of that through that window. So I'm going to paint that in. There we are. So technically that's the two cars. They can be adjusted later. Now I'm putting in, oh, one thing I need to do, just blocking that shadow side, that there running out of picture. And that's going to be, have I got any burnt umber? No, so we'll just go red and blue. There we go. That's our shadow colour, like that, and that's running out of picture, so we'll see that like that. And I think that's all we need to do for that. The next thing we need is we're going to go into the distance again, because we need to put in some tree work. A lot of tree work here, so I'm using blue and white with a little raw sienna to start with, to give it quite a bluey green. Okay, and that's going to be there in the distance. And the reason I painted the distant sky right the way down, I can leave gaps if I wish, which is always useful thing. Now I'm adding more white and more raw sienna. Don't want to be too light. That looks a little light to me, so we'll deal with that shortly, although perhaps it isn't. And then we can cut in down that building again, and once we get up to there, I'm now going to introduce lemon yellow to that. Give me a slightly and a bit more blue. Slightly different green at that point, like that. And that goes around the top there, and just indicate a little bit of a tree work there. Right, now I'm using lots of blue, bit of that lemon yellow, and some red, because this will darken off that colour, and that's just what I want there. And just on the edge there. Right, now a lot more yellow. Give me more local green, which is just what we're looking for. a lot more yellow, and I'm painting around the chimney this time. As roughly as we can get it, and that then needs red with that. Lots of red, lots of yellow, a little bit of blue, a little bit of white. There we are. And come up a bit grey, but we'll deal with that shortly by putting in a little bit more yellow. There we are. Do need more blue to give it that greyed off look, and that is gradually going out of picture to the left. There we are. And then we need to squeeze a lot of the paint out of the brush, and I'm going to use yellow and white to create sort of like those sunny highlights that will be vital if we're going to achieve sense of light. A bit more white, a bit more yellow, one or two little touches there, not too much in that bit, and that just comes down there like that. And that really is all we need to do for that particular stage in the background. Now, although that's white, I haven't put any paint on there yet, but I'm going to add a little raw sienna to the white, because that will give it a glow. So although you'll see these buildings white, initially you can leave them white, but eventually they need some colour, and just pure white is too dead for me. There we go. See how they glow? They've got a glow about them. Right, you are. Now, chimney again. A bit more red. There. There. No more chimneys there. No. No, that seems pretty much as I would have expected. Oh, and let's just do the road. Bit of raw sienna with a bit of white. Or this is the path actually. Runs up there like that and away like that. There we go. Pretty easy to put in. That's it. Right, now I'm going to lay in a little bit more detail now. I'm going to start off with, let's continue with a bit of shadow. Now the reason I said shadow detail is because there's an area of the roof that needs to be lighter, and that's there. So I've changed to the number 6 just to be able to pick in to these areas really, like that. So that's that roof, and it slopes back. Now we can see the corner of that, which is exactly what I wanted. While we have this colour, I'm going to pick up that gable end there as a lighter tone, like that. And we can just see that gable end there. Perfect. Right, blocking in some windows now, as I say, some more detailed sort of areas. And these are just red and blue. Just red and blue, really. Give me a dark enough colour for that. I'm going to use the maul stick for this because I want to, I'm working to my drawing really, my original sketch that I made as to where the windows are. One there, one there, one there. We've got one there. We've got a door there, I believe, and another one there. We have one just coming out the side of that area there. We've got a larger one there. We'll put some highlights on these eventually. Oh, and we do have a door pretty much central there. These can all be adjusted later on if needs be. And we've got a door there. We've got a door there, yeah, we've got a door there. Steps to go in. And we've got a window there. We've got a window just high there, high window there, I believe, for some unknown reason. Another one there. And then as we come to this one, we've got a couple of windows there. One there and one there. And one there with a main door and another window there. So pretty easy stuff. Now I'm putting in the windows this side, and we have, there's a bit of a roof there, I've not put that in. There's a window there. There's three here, 1, 2, 3. No windows there. We have obviously a window here, and I've left the white of the board there, so in many ways that helps the feeling of reflection. Pick up a bit more of the paint, a bit more blue in there perhaps, as we paint in these windows there and there. Window there, window there, and we've got that window there. Just the door. Let's paint the doors in. A bit more red in the doors for no reason other than just change of colour really, because these are probably not the finished colours. So basically that's all the windows just suggested. Now I'm trying to survive on just the basic colours that I started off with: cobalt blue, cadmium red, burnt umber, obviously white, raw sienna, and I do have lemon yellow. Those are the only three colours that I really want to use, which I think we can get away with that. I think we can work on that somehow. Good. Okay, now we're looking at more shadows, and for these shadows I'm going to use the white and the blue in almost equal proportion, but then I'm putting burnt umber with that, because I think that'll give me a lovely grey that I'm looking for. So we've got a grey under there, that's it, just right for the grey of this roof, of this white area there. So we need to re-plug that, and now I'm leaving spaces for the windows that I never had before. So that's and by layering like this, you change the construction of the whole thing picking around those windows. You can see where that bit stands out now with a different shaded area. There we are. That window's a bit big, so I can close that up. You can make adjustments as you go along. And down there, that's it for the overhang of that. Good. This is all dark, shadowed. Window there. That's it. And let's pick up a bit more white in that, because I need to paint this area, leaving out the windows that I originally painted in. There we go, and then we go under the overhang area there, and all of a sudden begin to see a bit more light. It's all about capturing light. If you can capture light, to me that's pretty much good enough. And then I'm creating a little bit of that on the path as well. Then we're adding a little bit more white for this building. There we go. And that finishes just on the edge there. Really inspired by this village of Kersey, lovely Suffolk village. That I've not visited for many years, and all of a sudden I thought, yes, I think we'll take another trip out there, and very glad I did actually, because it really was a lovely trip that inspired me to paint as much as I can, really. And all down that gable end there, that's it. That's pretty much it. Not worried about fine details. And the sunlit side of that, that's it. And then we have, oh right, so that comes out like that. Right, so we have just a little bit of shadow under there and down there, and just a little bit like that. That's it. We'll do it. And then a bit more blue now, because this is a white area, and we've got an overhang shadow there, like that. Just got to remember the perspective. I think I've got that right. That's it. And we then have an overhang shadow there, one there, and one there. Well, just thicken those up just a touch. Lewis begin to get a feeling of some form of light, really. Overhang shadow there, and well, we've got a bush coming in this side, so not too sure that makes a big difference. And there is a shadow there, like that. It cuts across because of the corner of that building. Yeah. And then we've got a shadow underneath the overhang there, like that. extra additional shadow, and we would then, if that's the case, slightly darker area under there. That's it. Let's get our beams in. There's a beamed building on the left. Okay, there's lots of beams on these buildings, but I know there's one running across there. Where else have we got beams? Oh, there's one. That's it. What have we got in there in the distance? Can we see that? Oh, right, okay, yep. Okay, that beam tucks back into there. We have another beam supporting that. There's lots of beams that support these features, and obviously we have the beams over the top of the windows, which are quite important. We do have structured beams that come down. Just have a look and see what we've got. Yeah, so we have a beam across there. We have some beams coming down there. I think we have one right on the edge there. There we go. That's good. We have some light coming through there. And then there's a lovely old beam that runs across there. Another one that runs across there with some sections like that. Just hinting really at them. And one right on the end there. There we are. Only a suggestion. We're not looking. There's an overhang there. So we're going to have a beam there. Right down that end. And that is part of the pub there. So that we'll have the beams there like that. I think it's got a beam there and underneath. Across the top there. There we go. What beams have we got this side? Oh yeah. We have beam there, there. Oh yes, of course, there. That's a lovely old beam there. What else do we have? Yeah, let's put a little dark under there, a little bit more under there. We do have a beam coming down there, or that's overhanging, so there'll be a lovely beam there, possibly with some supports under there. There we go. Probably see underneath that. That's good. That's brilliant. Adding a bit more water now. I want this to run a little, because I want to show where that building sits on the ground, on the road, and that is running into a sort of like a dark area where that sits on the road there. That's it. And we do have dark areas there too, and an area there, and we've got steps there, so it would be a good idea to show those. And we've got a black area there, we have steps there, and that dark area running along there. That's it. And that sits right on the end there. And all of a sudden we're beginning to get a little feeling of additional light that, for me, that's what this painting is all about. Using the rigger to put in these darker warm tones that will actually help to give the feeling of light there. See the way we've got a lovely warmth to that, and that is going to be the same there, and that's going to be the same under there at an angle because of the way that goes through. There's a window there, so I'm stroking that in, and that goes back again because it's a roof area. That's it. And back end of the chimney there, and of course a shadow running up the roof. Back end of that back side of that chimney, and a shadow running up the roof, and a chimney pot on the top there. See it? Good. Now we've got the left hand side of that and a chimney pot, left hand side of that and a chimney pot. We'll put highlights onto that pot very shortly. We have an overhang there, an overhang there, or we can see just underneath that as well, and that goes off to there. We can see underneath there as well, and underneath there. This is just lining it. We're not looking at gutters. I mean, there may be gutters there, quite likely we do have gutters there, but we're not looking to paint detail. We are purely looking to paint light. And that is the way you do it. Like that. There you go. Look at that. It's really beginning to come on now. Right, this is where we stand back and have another look. Now I've added more blue in the mix because this is going to be the shadow that runs across on the road from those buildings. Like that. That runs right the way across there. Probably go up the cars at some point. And that runs like that. A little bit of a change of direction there. We are. See that on the road? That's exactly what we're looking for. And that finishes there on the corner of that building. Right. Then we have a shadow from another building that casts across there. And goes to that water area. There we are. And we have that. I like that shadow that side because there's a glow to that. Let's just put in a bit of overhang shadow just to give it an additional depth. Like that. That's it. That's perfect. Good. Now I'm going to put in some light areas on that shadow, or the road actually. So just a bit of red, bit of white, plenty of white, bit of the raw sienna too, because I want light coming through there on the road from the corner of that building, running up there like that, running across there like that, and then a bit more white laid in quite thickly. There we are. And that, I think, gives us a sense of light running across that road. Yep. Clean the brush, because I've just got a bit of weak shadow to put in down there and running across, just to take away from that corner. That's better. That's nice. I'm going to have a, probably did have a bush coming in there, but we'll see how it goes. Good. Now it's just the two cars we need to pick up. Now I've moved in a little closer because I'm painting details now, and we do have a red tail light there, and I'm going to put one in there too because that's the back. Right. Any more reds? No. Now we're putting in putting in blue with this for the wheels. One there and one there. There will be one there and one there. That's it. Just to depict them. Nothing too fussy. There we are. And then of course we have brown in that, because I want to put like a grey black bumper on the back there and running down the side. We're going to put a window in the side there, and we're just hinting at a glazed area. See the way I'm just scratching across the surface there, creating a bit of depth to that. There we go. But yet we can see that car in front. Good. Clean the brush again. Now I'm going to use white now. Almost perfect white, although it's got a bit of red in there, because I want to pick up the highlights, like across the top of the roofs there, just where the sun is catching there, and down the side. A couple of windows there, suggesting windows. And then down the, what would be the area of the bonnet there. Yeah. And just a touch across there, touch across the top of the bumper, perhaps a bit of white. Always a good thing to do. I think that's probably fine. Yep, underneath we have shadow, and that is just that dark brown grey again. And of course it goes underneath there, and then beyond that up that area there. Yeah. So that shows that we do have shadow. Let's just put the tyres in a little stronger than that now. There we are. Because the tyres are on the ground, and that's it. Then we have shadow under there and under there. There we go. And then the car is more or less points like that, I think. That's it. Just rub that away. Nice bit of texture there. We're just going to be a little bit darker here with this shadow. Just there, just to heighten that shadow, and here as well, a bit more red where it comes into the foreground. There we are. Now I'm putting highlights on some other areas. Is that one had, oh yes, they've got glazing in there, so I'm putting highlight there, no glazing on that. I'm putting steps there, just purely with light colour really. That's it. And then what you do, you then take up the dark colour and you create a sense of steps by putting in the side areas like that. And the same goes here. Let's put in the dark areas first, although they're almost there really. Then clean the brush, and then we put the white steps on top. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Well, that's a suggestion, isn't it? Before I look to paint the water, I'm going to put in, there's a tall hedge here which stands along that water's edge, and there's a bit of greenery there as well. And that runs out of picture like that, and as I've depicted it, it actually runs across there like that, and because it's in shadow, I'm not picking up any colour as such, and it's a bit of a gap there, and then it comes up really, really high like that and overhangs, so it quite dominates that right hand side, which I just felt that probably it gives a nice bit of light there, bit of light coming through. And the other side we have a similar sort of thing. There's a nice little sort of shrub, but this time we've got yellow on that because it's in sunlight, and a bit of white in the yellow as well, and that will help to give a sense of sunlight. And it actually sat, I think it was in front of the forward area, so let's just try and pick up a little more of that lemon yellow, but not necessarily, don't necessarily want too much of that, but it's a little bit more yellow. There we are, lovely. Use the brush to suit the shape. Then of course, as you come into that, it gets darker. So we're certainly on the top and left hand side, and just on the overhang areas. But other than that, it's nice and dark in that corner. Go. And I think it's more or less just the water that's left. Now the water can be treated pretty simply really. I'm using the blue and the red, oh, and a little bit of yellow, and I'm streaking that along, right, leaving gaps. See the way I'm just laying that into there, so that you can see a good definition in there, right? So that's basically the first thing we need to do. Then all we need to do is to reflect the appropriate colours and or similar colours. We don't want exactly the same colours. So for start off, we've got a colour there from directly underneath there. Okay. Yes, that's more or less the colour that we've got. Okay. Then we have something a little lighter than that, so we need more white and a bit more yellow in there. It's sort of somewhat just like that, and just like that. And just try and blend it. It's misting, it's hazing away and that's what we're looking to achieve there. Then of course we get rid of that, and then we're going to put white in, so we need to get all of that paint, or a lot of that paint, off of the brush. So we squeeze that out into rag or a kitchen towel or something, and then we pick up white, and it's not perfectly white, so we need a little bit of yellow in there. Here we are, and that comes in there like that. Any other white? I don't think we've got any other white. No. Now we clean that off, and now we've got this sort of greeny blue, so a bit of yellow in there for the shadow areas that are being reflected. And they must be directly underneath. If they're not directly underneath, like that, or when there's another area there, so that runs across like that. That's it. And then of course we've got this here that, apart from any highlights, will be quite dark, and we put the highlights on later. And really, water is not that difficult to get to come off, as you can see. Well, a bit more white going in, bit of red, bit of pink. Give it that bit of movement, because there was quite a bit of movement there. A little bit of suggestion of reflection. Just losing my advertising. There we go. There we are. And that. Here we go. Is pretty much all we need to do, I think, for that. Now, there's not very little, there's very little else to do now. I'm going to just put in some rippling with some dark paint. That's a bit heavy, and if you go heavy enough, you just rub it out with your finger like that. Just blend it through, there we go. And then go over there with a shore line. Like that, that's better. We've got some edging there. A bit more water in the brush required. There we go. Bit of edging there. Oh, and a bit of edging along the curb. Just line that curb just a touch with a hint of something, and then just rub that through. There we go. That's the curb in. There is a curb here of some sort, I believe, which can be just suggested. Coming down like that. But that's in shadow. Perfect. Bit of white and a bit of green now, just to pack a punch to these trees in the background. I want those to bit of yellow to stand up against that background there. Not too light, but just a bit of light onto that. That's good, and that's then going to hang out over here. There you go. So that's all in sunlight. A couple of different variations of trees there. could actually come right down, I think, or at least down to there, hinting that it does. Well, yep, just got to put just cut in for that roof line again where I overpainted. It's got to be light. There we are. A bit more brown in that. Perfect. Just where it gets pulled away into the frontage there. It'll be a little bit lighter there too. A bit darker on the undersides where it just tucks up. There we are. Nice bit of depth to that. The same's going on here. At that point, just running up the roof. Same there. Not too much of a good thing. It's always a problem if you find something actually works and you do too much to it. So just remove a little bit of that, but basically a bit lighter. Yep, there you go. Nice and light on that corner. I like that top there to be nice and light, running down into that. There we are. Lovely. And then we'll pick up the top of that, the edge of that. It's already white, but I'll put some colour on that, and the top edge of that too, and just down there, top edge of that, just down there, top edge of that, down there. There we are. No need for too much of this, I don't think, because we're in danger of over sort of doing this now, I think. Right, doing some darker touches now along that edge, that water's edge, and highlights on the windows. Right, that's interesting. Bit of blue, that'll be nice. Pick up the little bit of sunlight, hit a bit of blue sky on those first floor windows, and also touches of that on these windows across the other side of the road, because they may very well in themselves have some of that blue just shining back. That's it. Now we're back into the shadow parts again, because we have sills. So there's a little bit under the sill there, under the sill there, just blobs. They suggest sill areas, I'm sure. Do you want to pick up a little bit of white again? Because I don't know whether I've quite got the side of that car in correct into sunlight. That's better. And then remove most of the moisture from the brush. pull that across and round like that. That's it. Got a bit better feel to that. Bit of yellow. Need a bit more yellow because I want to show a bit more on them cars, a bit more yellow on them cars. Which is number plate. There we are. A bit more red. Where's this red again? There we go. That's the red I'm looking for. A nice blob of red. Didn't need that yellow really. Blob of red there. Never looks right until we have figures. So let's have a couple of figures. Now we've got a figure here which is in red. There. And brown. There. Then we have blue, nice dark blue. Don't make them too large, otherwise the cars will look rather small, which we don't really want. There we go. And they're more or less talking to each other, I think. So that'll work. They're having a morning natter, as you do in these villages. And a little bit of shadow on that back edge there to that figure possibly, and that one. And I think that's sufficient. Well, as you can see, it's an extremely popular little village. Well, I'm at the top of the hill now, and we're gonna, I think, pop up the steps and into the church. Village sign and church. Well, this is looking back into the village from St Mary's Church. So we're quite high up here.